Well, to begin with, you probably remember that I did a little picture called The Poseidon Adventure. The Poseidon Adventure started the entire disaster genre, and obviously we were all frantically looking for other projects of a similar nature. I read a book called The Tower, and I was fascinated by it, and attempted to buy it. But there was no way to get the book because it had already been sold elsewhere. I finally read a book called The Glass Inferno. The oddest thing happened. It may have been the very first time in the entire history of the publishing business. The two books were exactly the same. Same characters, same situations, the same disaster. What happens the night of the celebration of the opening of one of the world's largest buildings, if indeed not the tallest building, and there's a terrible calamity in the form of a fire, and the 300 or 400 guests who have been invited are all locked off in the penthouse. Anyway, to get to the point, I attempted to buy the glass tower. I succeeded in doing so, and then suggested that Warner Brothers and Fox, where I was at the time, join forces and make one single motion picture. Turned out pretty good. As of this moment in time, the picture's already grossed over $200 million worldwide box office, which, when you cut it down to the realistic figure, it's $100 million in rentals.
How did you, all right, you have the property, now you're going to do it. How did you design the project? And I'm talking about directors, cameramen, this kind of.
First you start off with a match, and you start yourself a little fire. In actuality, doing the Towering Inferno had the logistics involved that would have done proud to World War III. You had the concept of building or making the audience believe that we were building or had just completed building the world's tallest office building, and that building, as I said, on the night of its opening, catches fire. It was a little involved. We did, in fact, use 7 different structures to create the one building. We used one of the buildings in San Francisco, whose name shall be nameless in accordance with the arrangements made with those people. We built a number of giant miniatures, and a giant miniature running over 100 feet high will give you an idea how tall the miniature was. And then we had to build them in various proportions because the fire took on various proportions. The blending of 7 different buildings makes up as much as the magic I'm going to tell you and reveal on this program tonight. Well, it was an involved picture in that it had a number of units. There was the special effects unit, there was the action unit, there was the principal photography unit, and each of these had to be designed carefully so that, one, they would stand up by themselves, and that they could be properly blended one to another. I looked for the best of the effects people, and Bill Abbott, who's been with me for almost 20 years and has won, I guess 8 Academy Awards for special effects, was my #1 choice because we knew there were going to be an unusual amount of effects. I chose John Gilliman as the director to work with me because of the work that John had done in the past. My art director was Bill Krieber, who had done such a magnificent job on the Poseidon Adventure. Had I mentioned that before, the Poseidon Adventure? A little project of ours, which is still among the top 16, just below your 15, of worldwide biggest grosses of all time. And there was a relationship. Turning a modern steamship upside down was kind of first cousin of setting fire to the world's tallest building. So Bill Krieber, who had worked on that, as did Bill Abbott and a number of the other people that went with me on Towering Inferno, were chosen because of the great work they did there. I picked myself to not only be the producer, but to do the so-called action unit directing. It's something I particularly enjoy, and I guess must do pretty good, otherwise they wouldn't have allowed me to do it. And we all worked very well together. The end result was the Towering Inferno. Well, unlike working with water, water will stand still in a big bathtub if you ask it to until you're ready with the next shot. But once you light that match, you better be ready to have all 8 cameras grinding at one time, because fire waits for no man. As a result of it, we did a lot of burning. And fire, obviously, is terribly dangerous, even more so than water. Happily, despite the fact that we successfully burned down the world's tallest building, at least for motion picture purposes. Well, the big climactic scene wherein Paul Newman and Steve McQueen go up on the roof, successfully explode the huge water tanks which crash through the top floor and cause the fire to be extinguished, was in fact the most dangerous of the scenes, and it did involve all of the actors, because being the climax of the scene, they all had to be present. Who was going to live, who was going to die, who was seriously hurt, for story purposes, not in reality. And I would say that was the most difficult scene. We did have 9 cameras. I take great pride in that particular scene because it was a scene that I directed. It took us 9 days to photograph what was on the screen for just about 9 minutes. And we're kind of proud of it. We're proud that everybody lived through it, including me. Well, I think Towering Inferno falls into the same category as Poseidon, which was the leader, the #1 of the disaster genre. I have a private theory about this. I think really we're all Walter Mitty's. We stand in front of the mirror in the morning and we conjure up some great experience we're going to have on that particular day, and we go out and face the world attempting to be heroes. Because the truth is, we'd all like to be heroes. When you couple that with what I think is a basic problem in human nature, I think there's something missing in our individual ids. And I think, strangely enough, and unhappily, we all like to attend accidents. You've never seen an automobile crash that didn't have 50, 60 people around it. You never saw a fire engine racing through the streets that wasn't followed by a crowd of kids and some grown-ups. And when they finally reach the fire, one of the greatest difficulties is to hold back the fire line. The combination of wanting to be the heroic Walter Mitty character and the fact that we enjoy accidents makes the present disaster movie the hits that they are. It gives the Walter Mittys of the world an opportunity to vicariously enjoy the thrill of being a hero while watching a terrible disaster in which they can't be hurt in the comfort of a theater seat. The problem with our individual ids is that we're all madly attracted to disaster. And I think those two, more than anything else, plus the way you put it on the screen, result in the success of the disaster film, and for which I'm terribly grateful. Well, first comes the money. Second, the money. Third, in fact, there are a number of rewards, and cumulatively they do come up to the money. It was marvelous getting an Academy Award nomination for the picture. It was wonderful becoming a fire chief in 73 countries throughout the world. It was very nice that fire chiefs throughout the world thought that the single greatest effort ever made in history for fire prevention was the production of the motion picture The Towering Inferno. So there are any number of things, including in the action sequence, directing Steve McQueen and Paul Newman, and I'm sorry.
Here, I'll change the angle.
Okay. Additionally, of course, was the marvelous opportunity in the action sequences of directing Steve McQueen and Paul Newman and William Holden and Faye Dunaway and Fred Astaire and Jennifer Jones and Richard Chamberlain and all the marvelous people that we cast in the show. There were endless rewards, and happily they never seemed to stop. The making of new pictures are always related back to the success of the Towering Inferno. I think that kind of sums up the different awards. And of course, last of all, there's the money. I'm a difficult fellow to work for, and not really, but I pretend to be. And I'm a perfectionist, and I do believe that this is an art form and should be treated as such. And as you can see here in this room, you're sitting now in the so-called Irwin Allen think tank. All projects start here, and they all start with visually or doing a visualization of an idea, whether it's from a bestseller or an original idea. How is it going to look on the screen? The quickest and easiest way to find out is have these remarkable artists that work for our operation translate